All right, hi guys. Welcome to another episode of Where the Mind Wanders with Spoons and Joe. Say hi, Spoons.
Hey.
And you can catch us on YouTube. We premiere every Monday at 3:30 Eastern Standard Time PM. Spoons is usually in the chat. I'm generally not home from work by that time, but every now and then the- um, I might make it. We also have a Telegram channel of the same name, Where the Mind Wanders. So that's where you can catch us. And yeah, I usually would say that at the end of the show, but I figured we'll sandwich in. We'll say at the beginning and the end.
There you go.
Um,
That's a
t
good plan.
Today, Spoons and I were talking off air. We're thinking of maybe doing a show today on applicable things that you can apply um, or on your own journey. You can test them out, see if they work for you. It worked for us. So we thought maybe we'd do an episode on things that you can actually do. Um, And would you like to carry us on that thought?
Well, I was thinking about um, the last couple of weeks, different books that kind of came to me the last couple of years that helped me sort of start making progress. And probably one of the ones that helped me quite a bit was the Four Agreements, which I kind of talked about it a couple of episodes ago about being true with your word and all of this stuff, not taking stuff personal. But basically, for me, it was a really good eye opener type of book because it kind of points out where you're causing your own suffering in a lot of those things in your words and your attachments. And one of the big ones that I started working on after I first read that book was trying to eliminate passive aggressive tendencies out of my life because it just confuses things. It not only confuses others when you say yes to things that you don't actually really have a passion for or care about, um, but it confuses self. So that was one of those. That was one of those books I would highly recommend to people if they're looking to sort of change their mindset on how they approach things. Just those four basic agreements, making that with yourself can change so much. And it's a constant work. I listen to that one at least once a year, sometimes more often. I've listened to it a couple of times in the last 2 weeks. So it's just kind of like trying to reprogram some of those principles and brush back up on that. So that's one I really like. What about you? What's something that you like? Something that's actionable or something to read?
Well, the my top actionable thing would be the book Letting Go by Dr. David R. Hawkins. In that book, he describes a method that I've been applying, and it gets you, to my estimation of everything I've ever tried, the quickest results. It's about pretty much every spiritual technique, and in the end, is about letting something go. That's the ultimate goal. Um, with this technique, it goes straight for the root. So you skip the foreplay, so to speak. Um, in that sense, you can get very quick results. Some things you can let go in literally like a minute. Other things might take some hours, days, weeks, months, but
Mm-hmm.
continuously applying it eventually leaves and never to show its head again. Um, so it's basically purging things out of your aura. Um, It's a very simple technique. All you have to do is want to be able to do it. Um, and it does help to keep kind of a single pointedness of mind, which things like meditation can help because any meditation is about developing a single pointedness of mind, no matter what mm, method you're using, so to speak. But it's a very easy technique. Whenever at any given moment you feel something inside, there's like a sensation of some sort. We'll take like example fear. You know, fear. You feel that nervous energy in your stomach, maybe, or the chest. You might feel it in your arms, whatever. Dryness in the throat. You know, however it manifests inside you. Everybody knows what fear is because that's the sensations they're feeling. So, say in this example with fear or nervous energy, you just allow the energy to happen. That's it. You allow it to happen. You don't try to change it or quote unquote resist it. You don't try to take action upon it. You don't try to think your way out of it. You All you do is you let the energy play itself out. Um, and you'll see that the mind is trying to change whatever's going on inside you. It wants to change it, or there's this desire in you or an attention to try to change it, and no matter think your way out of it, or I don't want to feel this way, or blah blah blah. That's quote unquote resisting. So all you do is say you have this butterflies in the stomach, you just let it happen. Let the butterflies happen. If you have dryness in the throat, you just let it happen. You'll keep feeling because it's your conditioning to try to keep changing it, but you just let that go and just allow whatever sensations you're feeling. Especially try not to don't. It's impossible to think your way out of it. That's thinking your way out of it is what keeps it going. So
Mm-hmm.
if you just let that energy within you just do its thing. Um, and it's so simple, and people make it so difficult, and it kind of is like, okay, do you feel what's going on inside you? I'm sure. How do you know you're afraid? Obviously, you have these sensations going on inside you. That's it. You're letting those sensations happen, and
Mm-hmm.
single pointedness of mind, it will kind of help because you have to stay with it and to allow it to happen, and it can assist you to say, okay, I'm just going to surrender this to God, however you see God. Surrender this to divinity, surrender this to something higher than myself. Um, and you just let the sensations keep going, keep going, keep going, until eventually what happens is that energy runs out and then it's gone.
Mm-hmm.
Like it could be minutes, it could be like I said, days, months, depending on what it is, because the more you've been adding energy to it your whole lifetime, the more is going to keep coming up. Because basically, what you're doing is you're not pushing it down. You're by trying to think your way out of it, or try to find some structural thing to change it. You're prolonging it to keep going longer and longer and longer because basically you're adding more energy to it or you're pushing it down, trying to
Yeah.
change it. Like, and this is just, I'm not going to try to change this. I'm just going to feel it out. I'm going to keep feeling it. I'm going to keep feeling it. Ask for more of it. I'm going to feel more of this. I'm going to surrender this to God. I'm going to experience this out for the greatest good, because it will run out. It will
Mm-hmm.
run out. Like, but you got to want it to. And that's the thing that's a lot of people don't want to really accept because it does take radical honesty to look within yourself. Because the biggest reason you don't want to let something go is because you're getting something out of it, the quote unquote juice of it,
Absolutely.
or the
Mm-hmm.
payoff, as it's called.
Yeah.
You're getting like a pleasure, like it's usually unconscious, so you have to look for it. But if it's like if you keep trying to change it, or you're like, oh, this technique is stupid. I don't know what this guy is talking about. Blah blah blah. It's probably because you have a payoff or a pleasure somewhere about keeping this, and that you let that go, Okay, you get a pleasure of I don't know. Like I noticed I had a pleasure about being angry. Like I'm righteous in my anger. Like I'm blah blah blah.
Mhm.
And then I kind of discovered over time that I was getting a pleasure out of being angry because I'm right and I'm the right one. I'm the righteous one. Blah blah blah. On and on and on. So it takes that kind of level of self honesty, and once you are honest about it and shed light upon it, you see it, and then you can feel that. Oh my man, there is a pleasure I'm getting out of this. I'm getting something out of this. So then you just allow the pleasure to feel the pleasure of it without any guilt. Feel the pleasure of it, and that energy will run out, and then it will free
Mhm.
yourself to experience the next layer, which in my case would have been the anger, and then that would run out. So it's almost like say if you're um, fearful or angry, you want to be more fearful and you want to be more angry. You want to put the pedal to the floor. You want to say, yes, I want to experience this, um, these sensations of it. And the thing is, all thoughts are generated from wanting to change something. All thoughts, universal. Anytime you're thinking or producing thoughts is because you are trying to change a internal state. And by trying to change it, you're generating all these dots and you're coming out up with all these reasonings and logic of how I'm going to change it. When all you would have had to do, if you really truly wanted to get rid of it, is just let it play itself out and look for possibly the payoff you're getting out of it. That little pleasure that you're getting that you don't want to let go of, um,
Mhm.
and just experience that pleasure out. Like
Yeah.
I like being angry. I like it. Oh, it feels so good. I like it so much. Literally, and it will. You got to get rid of that energy because that's usually what's holding you back. Because every pain has
Right.
a pleasure attached to it, and vice versa. So that is a very easy and effective technique. It's not complicated. It's only complicated if you want to make it complicated, but it's like literally the easiest thing on the planet. You feel a sensation inside you, you allow that sensation to keep happening without trying to change it. That's it. And
Yeah.
that's all you do. Um,
Yeah.
and it will go. Um, you can also try to say, okay, what's my intention for having this anger? And then keep letting go of the intention, like let it float away like a cloud or something like that. Because everything that we're doing, we're constantly having an intention. We just usually are unconscious of it because we're on autopilot. But just
Mhm.
say, what is my intention for having this feeling right now? Because you have an intention of some sort, and by letting that go, usually you figure out that, oh my, I have a pleasure attached to this, and then you gotta let go of the pleasure, and then you can just allow yourself to experience the feeling, like the fear, like the butterflies in the stomach, the dryness in the throat, the shaking. If you're shaking, allow yourself to shake. Just like whatever comes up, you allow it to come up and you don't push it back down and you don't try to change it and you don't try to think yourself out of it and you don't say, oh, okay, I'm going to go do X, Y, and Z and make it all complicated, how I'm going to let this go. Because basically, like I was saying earlier, everything at the end of the day, whether it's meditation, contemplation, any spiritual techniques, if they're truly spiritual techniques, are bringing you to let go, but you can just go straight to the root and dissipate the energy that way. So
Mhm.
I found that to be the most useful technique. You can read the book "Letting Go" by Dr. Hawkins. It was like a continuation from the Sedona method, um, which they go through a little bit of more meditation about asking yourself three questions or whatever. But I found it a lot easier just experience the feeling, like just experience the
Yeah.
feeling and don't try to change it. And yeah, and we lost spoons. Okay, so spoons might be back. Um, yeah, I don't know. She's having trouble with her internet. Come back, spoons. Come back. Do, 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 do. All right, we're back. Technical difficulties, everybody. But yeah. So I was just describing the letting go technique, and I guess what's your thoughts on it, Spoons?
I mean, yeah, it's so simple, and yet that for me was the most complicated process to kind of start because I couldn't. It's, I guess I struggled with how do you ever let anything go because I didn't have that in my life at all. Like I could push stuff off to the side, or I could. Um, it was all avoidant type stuff, so I never actually knew how to let stuff actually go. So for me, it's about staying with the feeling and not running
Mm,
and not distracting. So
mm.
if I can accomplish those two things, I can work through a lot of a lot of that stuff. But it's definitely never been an easy process, and even now, after doing years of this, it's still not an easy process to me.
Yeah. Well, it's
It's
uncomfortable.
simple,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's uncomfortable. And you have to be willing to be uncomfortable, which is the one of the biggest things I've noticed with people who are like, "Oh, this doesn't work," or I don't get it," and they ask a million questions. It's like, it's you have to be willing to be uncomfortable because it's not exactly comfortable to feel like anxiety or anger or whatever. Like it's not like you have to be able to ride it out without trying to change it, which is means you have to embrace the uncomfortableness of it. Um, the second thing is you have to actually want to, which goes back to are you getting a payoff from it?
Mm-hmm.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are all getting payoffs from all these feelings that we keep having coming up over and over and over. You are not a special snowflake. You are also going to have to look inside yourself and admit that you are getting something out of it. All negativity that we hold on to, which is literally letting go, is not holding on to. Uh, Everything we're holding on to it because we're getting something out of it. We think it's useful.
Mm-hmm.
It could be pleasurable. Um, you get like this glee, like I was talking about with the anger before, or something like that. Like
Mm-hmm.
um, you're going to have to let go of that pleasurable ness you're getting out of it, or it can't be let go. Like and you have to admit to yourself, and if you want to hold on to something, that's your prerogative, I guess.
Yeah.
Um, so it's I don't know what to say when people ask more questions than what I've explained because it kind of like baffles me a little. It's like, and what I've come to find is that sharing this over the years, or especially over the months, is that when you tell people about this, they want to make it more complicated or say there's got to be another way. Well, there are other ways. It's all
Oh
basically trying to get you to the same thing that I just explained. I'm just trying to explain how you can just experience it out right now and get rid of it. Like how the founder of the Sedona method put it is that when he was able to just figure out you can just let it go like this, you literally can go through psychotherapy for the next 10, 20 years and be able to let go of the same thing you could in a couple days, literally. Um, there are other methods. You can
yeah.
psychotherapy or God knows whatever spiritual techniques, whatever. Of course, it's all trying to get you to the same thing to let it go,
Mm-hmm.
but you're doing all these like extra steps. Basically, this is the straightest line to A to B, like without going like this.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, there's other ways to let it go. I'm just trying to tell you, okay, if you just pretty simple, experience the feelings out, see what you're getting out of it. If that is there a feeling you're getting out of it, like a secret little pleasure, glee feeling that you're getting out of holding on to it? You think this it's important to hold on to it, or You're not, maybe you're not done experiencing what you need to experience out of whatever you're feeling. Maybe that's the
Yeah.
honest truth of it sometimes. Like I'm getting something out of it. Um, I noticed when I was trying to tell people about like different like okay, these conspiracy theories and stuff I let go of. Actually was with my friend Jeff over the weekend, and I was telling him how you literally can go to in Arizona and go to look through these telescopes and look at the moon and see that the moon is exactly the way they described it to us. And then you could
Hmm.
do all these mental gymnastics. Oh, they must be just computer animating all the telescopes all over the world, and there's all these tens of thousands of scientists that are just up their own ass. Or it could be that a bunch of people made stuff up on the internet for because they're getting something out of it, and whatever that feeling is, they're feeling superior to other people, or whatever they're getting out of it.
Hmm.
Um, that's why they will never change. Because I we were talking, and Jeff said it the simplest possible way. Well, it's hard to let go of conspiracy theories because they're too much fun.
Right.
And basically, that's what it is. It's fun. You're getting
It's
something
a
fun out of it.
puzzle.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but that could go for anything, anything in your
Yeah.
life, any kind of negativity you are juicing. And when I say juicing, I found the simplest explanation of what juicing is. Juicing is trying to get the most pleasure you can out of something.
Hmm.
Usually unconsciously. Sometimes it's pretty conscious if you're honest about it. But it's like, am I getting some sort of like pleasure out of this? Like and just allow yourself to experience that pleasure. Like, yeah, I love this. I love it. I love it. I love it. Like, and just burn that out. Put the pedals to the floor on that one.
Yeah.
Um, because basically, I've found that any growth is one. It comes out of humility to admit that you're wrong. You could
Yeah.
be wrong. Um, that you are getting pleasure out of it, and people will feel guilt about getting certain pleasures out of certain things, and you don't need to feel guilty about it. You're just human, and you're just that's what everybody does, and everybody, or
Yeah.
we wouldn't be here. Is that animal nature I was talking about in an episode or two ago? Um, it's okay. It's okay. It's all right. Everybody is experiencing this. Like it's fine. We were born with an
Hmm.
animal brain that is wired for survival and wired to do the things it does and wired to try to separate itself from the whole and wired to think it's right all the time and that perception is reality and on and on and on. Um, so it's yeah, it's just basically just allow it being honest. It's radical honesty. That's basically what it comes down
Yes.
to. Radical honesty about what's going on inside you, or about, and it's kind of even hard because until you burn out some of those emotions and you start dismantling it, like perception, you think perception is reality, but perception is just like this filter. Like it's
Hmm.
very limited. That's first off, you have to see that you're very limited. Your mind is kind of stupid. Like it's kind of cut off from the whole. It can't possibly have all the information. It's impossible. Um, but once you start letting go of those energies, those emotionalities, I guess to call them,
Hmm.
the perception starts to loosen, and your context expands, and you get you'll start allowing more information, and you'll start to get some sort of clarity out of it.
Yeah.
Um,
I think that probably clears up some chemical reactions in the body too, because,
yes,
you
yes,
know,
yep,
if you
indeed,
let go of certain emotions, then you're letting go of like maybe dopamine or serotonin or I don't know, um, all sorts of different things that can make you feel a certain direction. And then once that kind of dissipates, you're like, wow,
yes,
I don't know if I actually feel that way about whatever the thing is. Um, it's fascinating once you have a few of those kind of reveals. So yeah, you definitely have a lot of physiological changes go along with the mindset changes. So
yes. Everything is spirit, mind, and body, body, mind, and spirit. Everything is a correlation of one of the other. Um, so like a certain spiritual energy is best thought of as like a certain contextualization to see something like a lens, and then the mind arranges within that context to allow certain information in and to be able to logically start filtering information out. Um, and in the body, there are all kinds of things going on, like hormones, like Spoons was talking about, and chemicals, and it solidifies. And you get once the body solidifies, it like it creates like this loop, and now the mind can only arrange in this way, and then you can only contextualize it in this way. So it's like body, mind, and spirit is like almost like a circle, like it's all correlated to one another. One can't change without the other two changing. Like
Mhm.
uh, and you can see this in the meridians and things like kinesiology or acupuncture and things along
Yes.
that line, like where you can actually measure um, this kind of stuff, like through the actual body. But yeah, so it's like everything you're tackling is body, mind, and spirit, and that's why there is like this delay sometimes, like letting go. There's certain things that took me months to completely let go.
Yeah.
There's so much energy there. I kept trying to distract myself with it. I would let it go for as long as I could, and I would go back to distracting myself or something,
Hmm.
or making excuses why I can't let this go right now, or on and on and on. And um, or ultimately sometimes not wanting to let go of what I'm getting out of it, like we were talking about with the pleasure. Like that's the biggest
Yeah.
one. Like and there's all these like Spoons was saying, or I was just talking about like correlations in the body with the hormones and the meridians and stuff like that. It's all tied into that, which the body is experienced through time. So something that's you've been crystallizing into the body through the spirit and mind for your whole life is not going to be something that's just going to be let go of in a day. Sometimes
Yeah.
it's great when it happens. Sometimes it does. Sometimes you can let something
Hmm.
go in literally minutes. But a lot of these things that we've been juicing and juicing the pleasure you are getting out of it. Um, um, Juicing as in think of it like electricity, like juicing um, like there is a pleasure, and chemically in the body you want to keep experiencing that pleasure because our bodies are wired to run away from pain and to seek pleasure, and uh,
Hmm.
and the mind just reinforces. It's like this medium between the spirit and the body. It's partly the body because it's operating through the nervous system and the brain and stuff like that, but it's also spirit. It's ethereal. Like you can't grab a dot. Like um, so the mind is arranging based on the contextualization of the spirit and the energy that is of the spirit as is also coming from the other way, like the hormones and the nervous system and stuff like that that's of the body. So part of the human experience is things take time sometimes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Especially like bigger things that you let go of. Like I kind of hinted last week at one. I have some sort of stuff coming up about spirituality and religion and things like this, and I wasn't expecting that stuff to come up when I started working on the thing that I was working on. But it's all tied together, when you start working on some of the deeper rooted stuff, a lot of unexpected things gotta come out with it.
Yes.
And for me, it took weeks for that stuff to sort of settle down because I was like, I feel like I squared all of this stuff away in 2021 with religion. I started doing more of connecting within myself and connecting to God and not thinking of it in a specific religion fashion anymore. but more of a personal fashion, which is kind of difficult, I suppose, to explain to people. But it's not that I'm anti-religion. I just have a lot of baggage with it. I have a history there that makes it complicated. And so when some of that stuff started coming back up, it scared me a little bit because I'm like, does this mean I have to go back to that religion? And there's a piece of me that says I would like to do that, and then there's another piece of me that says I don't ever want to do that. And the answer lies somewhere in the middle. Um, but it's not really the important thing. As I let that stuff just kind of play out the last couple of weeks, I'm back to where I was in 2021. I'm back to I have a personal connection. It doesn't have to have a religious tag on it, and you know, I don't know. I came across some different books the last couple of weeks that kind of helped balance some of that anxiety that came up with it. But yeah, you never know when you're working through some of this stuff how it's going to actually affect you, and you just have to keep with that mindset to let it continue to play out until it's done. Because it eventually does get done, but I don't know. It may have taken me 3 or 4 weeks on this particular thing, and I don't know that it's done, but I do feel more peaceful about it this week. So I'm gonna hope it's done. Yeah, letting go process. It's an interesting one. Whether you're experiencing just the clarity of mind or just the physiological changes in the body, it's
Yes.
fascinating.
Yes. And one thing about letting go is once you clear space, the energy that's closer to, say, your source of existence, call it God or
Mhm.
divinity or whatever, is able to shine through. Um, the only reason we don't experience God, so to speak, or divinity or higher selves or whatever, is because we're superimposing our perception upon it and limiting our context or limiting um, what we have available to us inside. Um, because one thing, the mind gets a lot quieter when there's space. It's not like thoughts completely go away necessarily.
Mhm.
But they're arranged in a more coherent um, pattern, I guess, and it's not as chaotic.
Yeah.
Um, um, and you do experience greater amounts of compassion or love, call it, or peace or
Yeah.
joy when that energy which is the source of your existence, is allowed to come in because you let some of the structure that you're blocking it with.
Mm-hmm.
The greatest analogy I've ever heard is pretty much the light of divinity is you can think of it like the sun, and you can't make the sun shine; it's always shining. What you can do is remove the clouds because all you just don't see the sun because the clouds are in the way, and the clouds would be the content of your mind, whether they're beliefs or concepts or emotions or all this content that's going on inside. It can be thought of as the clouds, but there is, like we were talking about. I don't remember if it was last episode or a couple episodes ago. Whatever it was, is that the source of your existence. There's always a witness. Um, there is a dreamer of the dream, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And the Vedic traditions, they just called it the self with the capital S, um, the real self. Um, and it you can't exist right now if it wasn't for that, and it's always going on in the background, so to speak. Call it the light of God, so to speak. That's lighting everything up so that you know that you are. Um, but you have all these clouds. which are conceptualizations, belief systems, um, emotions, the ego itself.
Mhm.
Um, and by letting go, you start letting some of the clouds dissipate, and the sun is able to shine more and more through. And then the next stuff comes up. But I've been noticing though at this point that a lot of this stuff that's been coming up to the surface in me at this point is not that personal. Like it
Mhm.
doesn't feel like personal issues for the most part anymore. Um, it seems more of the actual base foundation to which all that was built upon, like the raw emotionality, the raw animal nature of the ego. Um, those raw energies seem to be what are coming to the surface more and more as time progresses, at least in my case.
Mhm.
Um, there's very little personal stuff that comes up. Um, actually, I got some good. I made a breakthrough at work today. I had you can say, a very hard day at work today, and
Okay.
was not. There was times I might be been a little stressed. I won't lie on that, but I was pretty happy-go-lucky considering the amount of crap that seemed to be playing out today. And that was something I think I was talking about a few episodes ago, which actually kind of comes full circle because the whole you guys were telling me about the four agreements and stuff like that. But um, I noticed today for the first time that I was not taking work too personal, or I didn't care that much to get too
Mhm.
stressed about it. And I didn't
Right.
even notice that until like um, afterward. That I was like, the me a month ago would have said this is a horrible day. But to me today, it was just like, okay, well, let's just get it done. And it was done before you knew it. Like time flew, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, but yeah, so there are personal things that still come up. Like my work one was seemed to be one of those last ones that was like hovering. Like, but
Mhm.
now it's like yeah, the stress is there because there's still like this like attempt to control the external around me, so to speak. But
Mhm.
it's less and less because throughout the day I was pretty much letting it go. Like I was letting these emotions go, I was letting these thoughts go, I was letting the story of what was going on at work and the story of Joe, so to speak, that progressing on this day of the 22nd of January, blah blah blah. I was just kind of letting that whole thing go. And I guess I could say it's not completely let go, but I see a huge difference in contrast. Like, and that's kind of what the letting go thing is as well. Is sometimes you don't even realize how much you let go until you have one of these moments
Mhm.
where okay, the energy's still there. It's not all gone yet, but it's
Mhm.
like lost a lot of steam.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That I think that was one of the things I had happen this week. I got a different perspective. So like the very first big thing I ever let go of, I remember getting that big open empty space feeling. And all I wanted to do once that happened was fill it up because there was like this panic that arose because I'm like, I don't like all this openness. I don't know what to do with that. And this time when it came to that, I was just like, it'll fill back up. It'll fill back up with something else, whatever it's meant to have in that space. Um, there wasn't that sense of panic or worry or
Mm.
any of that sort of stuff. So it's like this new perspective like, oh, okay, it's okay to have open space and be able to breathe a little bit better and have a little more clarity and such. So,
Yeah, sometimes it is like that. That when you have that space, you don't know what it's like, kind of disheartening. Um,
mm-hmm.
because especially if it was something that had to do with your identity or something like that, or how you would pass the time, quote unquote, it's like, oh my God, what am I going to do now? Like, um,
Mm-hmm.
I'll let you in on a secret and
Especially,
oh, yeah.
oh, I was just gonna say, especially if you're like someone like me that the mind was constantly going, 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 and you get relief from that, and then you're like, you can just have an empty mind for a few minutes.
Mhm.
That's still a hard concept for me, but like, um, I think our society is very much built about this stuff, wanting to stay busy, stay busy, stay busy. That's normal, and it's tiring. When you get relief from it, it's like, oh, you could actually just be. It's totally fine. So
Mhm.
anyway.
Yeah, I know exactly what that's coming from though at this point. Um, I can share like, um, all right, I had an experience like 8 years ago. People like Spoons or the people I know probably already know this story, but it was like I went on a bike ride in February actually. I don't 8 or 9 years ago. I can't even say at this point. I was 29, so we'll say I'm about to be yeah. So we'll say 8 years ago. And as I was going along, like I was actually letting go. Really intensely that day because it was cold out, but the morning the sun was beating down on me, and it just felt really good. And I was going on this bike ride. I have nowhere to go that day, so there was like no time pressure, and I was just constantly letting stuff go. And I had been doing a lot of meditation at the time, so it was pretty easy to just let go of thoughts. And the next thing I knew is the whole ego was dissolved, and I became the higher self, so to speak, the best I can explain it. And
Mm-hmm.
in that state, there's like this illuminating kind of light, like you would see in like Rembrandt paintings or something like that. Um, and the body was no longer significant. Like everybody's bodies was just as important as my body. There was literally a sensation of like just as you would like move your finger or something like that, that I was moving everybody, or not me, Joe, but like the the next level was moving everything, all the people as well as this body on the bike. And for the most part, there was like a complete quieting of the mind. Um, and I realized uh, absolutely in that state that everything was happening by itself. That everything just happens, and like the will is not exactly what you think it is. Like everything is just moving itself, and from the grass growing to the people on the trails to that body riding its bicycle, and the sun shining, and all that was just happening by itself. And I kind of realized that there was no personal me making anything happen, and in that space arose kind of a uncomfortableness, um, which triggered the mind to start thinking again, because even though I literally felt like everything was made of love, like the joy that was experienced was undescribable. I've never had a experience like that since, that intense. But there was still like this uncomfortableness of this knowingness that everything was just happening, and the personal self was not that important. And it out of that uncomfortableness, it kind of triggered the mind to start working again.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like it kind of felt like a lawnmower, like an analogy when you pull a lawnmower string and the engine doesn't start right away. That's how the dots kept
Mm-hmm.
coming back, like, and it was all coming out of that uncomfortableness of this, like knowing, oh crap, there's no personal me doing anything, and that triggered, I guess, the ego to come back online is the best I can
Yeah.
put it at this point. And since then, that was I've kind of come to realize through the letting go process, the last months especially, is there's a deep primal part of you that wants to remain separate, and that does not want to accept the truth because the very sense of separateness that we have is literally resisting the truth
Mhm.
and wanting to be in control as an ego separate from the whole. I'm gonna pass this over to you, Spoons. I really need a drink of water.
Yeah. No, I kind of get that. I mean, it makes sense that the ego would want to come back online and do the survival mode thing just because that's what keeps us here. That's what keeps us here for this experience. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I realized reflecting back on that because it keeps happening over and over and over. And then I've reflected back to that one experience where there was, yeah, just such an uncomfortableness. I can't even describe the feeling. Just like this, really? I'm not, I don't have personal control over everything. Like, I don't have, the free will is not what I thought it was, like that kind of deal. And it was literally resisting that triggered the mind to start thinking again, which eventually brought me back into separateness.
Mm-hmm.
And every letting go experience I've had this far, when you get that space like you were just talking about, there's something deep, deep down within us that immediately is like, I don't like this.
Yeah.
Like, I don't like this. I need to bring back some of the old reality. Maybe I don't want to go all the way
Mm-hmm.
back yet, but at this point, but I got to bring something back. Like, because there's like this uncomfortableness. That's the best way I could put it. I can't even like describe the emotion per se. I would
Yeah.
it maybe a fear, but it doesn't come off as like a fear. More of like I just described, like, oh man, what the I got to do something like gotta do
Yeah.
something like uh
It's definitely some sort of an alarm system, that's for sure. I mean, that's the thing about the ego. The ego is there to protect you. It's, you know, doing this process, you do have a lot of ego death, but you're never going to completely kill the ego. If you completely kill your ego, it wouldn't exist. It wouldn't exist. So,
no, but I think that's something real primal that eventually we're all gonna have to face on some level.
oh, yeah.
Yeah,
So,
because one it you might take two steps forward, but then it makes you take a step back. It almost seems like it does what it seems to do. That's the best analogy I could put it. You go two steps forward, but then you got to take a step back. Then you go two steps forward, but and you let something go, but oh my God, now I got to take a step back. There's like this constant dance, like going
yeah,
forward, back, forward, back, forward, back. Like,
I think when this stuff started coming up about religion for me, I said something to you about it. I was like, I had this stuff squared away, and I was so pissed off about it. Like, it's like, why am I like diving back down into this stuff that I already felt like it was where it needed to be? And that's just part of the process. You're just going to keep having to reevaluate certain things. And I did get back to that space where I'm like, I'm exactly where I was supposed to be. Um, that's not to say 6 months down the road it doesn't come back around and I have to look at it again, and maybe I do make a different decision. Maybe I do find some sort of other um, specific religious structure to fall into, because I don't think I don't think religion in itself is a bad thing. I think it's a very beautiful thing, and I think it's um, a necessary thing for a lot of people. But I don't know. I think part of that is like a lot of the stuff I've been working on is like a self trust sort of thing too. So it's like, is this about not wanting to take some sort of personal responsibility? Is this wanting to like pawn your decision making off to some other sort of source? Because I feel like that's when I was part of a religion, I felt like I was just being told and not actually thinking what I needed to be doing. So I think that was a lot of what that struggle actually was, which is always interesting. Those things that come up, and you're like, oh, is this actually about accountability or is this about something else? And maybe it's about a lot of different things. That's another thing. Only time really can tell on a lot of this stuff.
Yeah. That sometimes it is like that. Sometimes there's many layers that have to be let go before you actually get to the root of what all that was holding all that into place, which just takes time, persistence,
Mm-hmm.
knowing it will be worked out. It always does get worked out. It's just not on your time, so to speak. It always
Yeah.
comes up at the least, it's usually the least convenient times, actually. Um, but yeah, everything is like tied in. There's multiple levels, and then you get down to certain like almost archetypal kind of things, like I was kind of hinting at like earlier, where the things that they become less and less personal, and then you see like this very impersonal aspect of your consciousness that is was holding everything into place, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the video games, like there you get you fight all the people and then you get to the big boss. Like eventually you get to that big boss down there, which would be considered like almost like an archetype in the collective conscious. That's kind of a something we all share to various degrees. We have maybe more of it in us. Um, but we all share it from the collective consciousness, so to speak, like the very foundation of what being human is, and all these like different levels that are built on top of it. Um, like there's within all of us, like this is kind of brought to my attention. Like there's an archetype. I don't even know what to call it. It has a name, but I can't think of the name at the moment. But it's basically like a religious archetype within us that feels like if we don't do as it was uh, given to us by the collective, like a certain religious thing, that if we kind of buck that system, we believe that we're in heresy.
Mm-hmm.
Like um, that we can't look at things from like saying that like God is the source of my existence instead of something outside of me. Like
Mm-hmm.
that there is actually a primal like fear, this archetype within us that does not want to that's afraid that if we go there we might go to hell or whatever. Like
Mm-hmm.
um that's something that's within all of us that might have been conditioned into us for because this is religion's been going on thousands and thousands of years, so God knows how many lifetimes and how much energy in the collective consciousness that it has, that's a part of all of us. Because
Mm-hmm.
that's come up in me before it as well. Like and I'm not even religious. I wasn't even brought up in a religion. Like sort of, but so but I think we only went to church for like christenings and that kind of thing. I think I might have been in a church service like maybe I don't know 5 times my whole life, besides like christenings, baptisms, or whatever, like
Uh-huh.
weddings. But I wasn't even brought up religious, and I noticed that come up within myself before, that
Mm-hmm.
afraid of being blasphemous, like but that's something that seems to be in all of us.
Yeah.
That's something like Jung would say was in the collective consciousness. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. Wonder sometimes about some of that stuff just being somehow passed through genetics anyway.
that goes back to like the body, mind, spirit thing we were talking about. There's a correlation in all of that.
Mm-hmm.
There's a collective consciousness, like Jung described, um,
Mm-hmm.
and on the physical level, you can say that that's written into our structure, how we evolved biologically.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it really is like a chicken and egg argument. Like,
Right.
is it in the genes, or is it from the ether and the collective? And then, it's the truth is it's probably both. It's
Yeah.
correlated, like we were talking about earlier, body, mind, and spirit. So yes, it is passed down in the genes, but it's not just in the genes. It's something beyond the genes as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's most things. There's multiple ways. It's kind of like the body itself. There's multiple systems to alert you that something's going on with the body. So it makes sense that that pattern repeats in other areas uh, of things. So yeah.
Yeah, that's even from what I understand at this point, how astrology even works is there's no cause and effect with the planets. There's a correlation with the consciousness of this realm and its physicality with the cycles that are going on with the planets and whatnot.
Mhm.
But there's no cause and effect. It's a loose correlation. Just like if you have certain thoughts and context that you have certain hormones and stuff going on in the body, it's like this correlation that's going on up in the heavens. But the like Saturn moving through this sign doesn't cause anything. It's just kind of lined up with the everything. So it's very non-linear. It's almost impossible to explain past that. Just it's no cause and effect. It's just correlation.
Yeah, I could see that. Mm, it's interesting. It's true. Looking at astrology stuff, I have to I don't know. I'll look at a little bit of that stuff, but I try not to look too much into it because that gets you into too much future thinking, I think.
Yeah,
I have to be very careful with stuff like that.
yeah,
Um,
same.
because yeah, just I don't know. I do like to check in on certain things like that, but I try. You got to do it from the right headspace too. Like, if you're in that fearful mindset, oh, looking to the future, it's very messy.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
thing is, I haven't looked into astrology in many, many years, but there was a couple of years I was doing it pretty hardcore. I was even doing people's
Mm,
charts for them. Like anything, you've known me for a while. Anything I look into, I really look into it.
absolutely.
And forgot a lot of it, but in the most general sense, I know I still have the information in my head.
Hmm.
It's just like, you stop practicing a language and you forget it. That kind of deal's going on. But um, it's just like every prediction I tried to make was loose at best, but usually wrong. However, the if you look into like what's going on in the present moment and a correlation, it makes perfect sense. Or
Yeah.
hindsight being 2020, so to speak. You always like look back and see it, and you're like, oh, well, that makes sense. It's like your natal chart's like in that context, looking back
Hmm.
2020. But looking to the future, yeah, you can literally go insane, and that's the downfall of a lot of people who get into like things like astrology or the tarot or any kind of occultism, is they get carried away with it, or
Yeah.
they take it too serious. Like it's a interesting thing about our universe and physicality and all that, but you can really be sucked in the wrong way kind of deal. It's very easy. That's always the downfall of any of this stuff is to get in too deep uh, and try to
Yeah.
use it to your ego's advantage, um, which is just like a downward spiral. Um,
It can be, I think.
yeah,
Yeah. I think that's with anything though. I mean, whether they say every method is a trap, there's definitely even like this letting go stuff. I can see where that in itself can sometimes become its own trap.
Well, that's one thing
Mhm.
I kind of would even say I disagree with you because there's until you're at the very source, there's always something else to let go. And it's
Oh,
not adding
absolutely.
it's not adding. The thing is that we're talking when we're talking about every method is a trap, is we're
Hmm.
adding. It's not subtracting. Like letting go is literally going the opposite direction. It's not being yang, it's
Yeah,
being yin. So
it
and
is.
yeah.
But what I'm talking about, I suppose, is when you get wrapped up in it as your identity, which can happen. It's just like any other thing that you start relying a lot upon, and you don't think that it could happen because you're literally doing the opposite of it. But I can kind of see in certain spaces where it can definitely be its own little trap or distraction.
You know, if you're letting
So,
go, if you're not letting go, if you're adding on to that, you're somebody who lets go.
right? It's a
Because then
conundrum.
you just gotta guess you gotta let that go, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, uh,
It's funny. I don't know. There's just it's interesting some of the stuff that um comes up with that. I don't know. That's also like I'm always like going to be a seeker type. I'm always going to want to learn about all these different other methods. And that in itself can become its own trap because that's a distraction. Learning about another method when you already have a method that works. It's kind of like, well, are you doing that because you want to be able to help more people in
mhm.
different ways and also add variety for yourself, or are you just distracting yourself with this other thing? So I have to ask myself that quite a lot.
Well, that's actually,
What's
yeah.
yeah, what's the root of that? You know?
Well, that's actually why I don't really look into more content. We have had this discussion in like a group not too long ago, and I was pretty much explaining truthfully that I don't wish to add on anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I've looked at stuff. I know what works. I know where I want to be, and I it's a subtracting. I'm at the point of subtracting, not adding.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean I don't find things interesting, but if I was going to look into something at these days, it would be more like I don't know. Depends like what I'm in the mood for. It'd be like, oh, I would like to learn a little bit about this history or about this science. Like I was talking to you earlier about, I was reading John Diamond's book about just pure kinesiology, like not like the true false stuff like Hawkins uses or whatever, but actually like how the meridians work and like the science behind it and all that. I was learning some interesting stuff, but it's like when it comes to like spirituality, I don't feel like I need anymore. I think
Mm-hmm.
everything is just I don't need to add stuff anymore. Like I found that discovering who I really am is not adding but subtracting. And that's why I say
Yeah.
I to kind of get it. Like there are people out there who are like, oh, okay, you just gotta let go, let go, let go, and they're let go gurus, so to speak.
Yeah.
But they added something on that that's their identity now, which now
Mm-hmm.
they have to let that go, so to speak, because the letting go is the stripping of Jungian. Like, um, and I just don't feel like there's any books that can offer me any. What is one any book going to tell me that I can't discover on my own at this point? That's kind of how I feel
Yeah.
about it. Um, there are a few teachers I might like come back to every now and then because I do notice like if you read a book like a year later after you're a new person, you see it with fresh eyes and you can have a whole new
Mm-hmm.
context to read it through.
Yes.
So there's certain teachers like Raman Maharshi or Nisargadatta Maharaj or Dr. Hawkins or something like that. I might come back to something, or even like a holy text, like the New Testament or the Heart Sutra or the Upanishads, the Bhagavad Gita or something like that. I might come back to it, just
Mm-hmm.
go like, I don't know why, but I need to read this right now. And then it's
Yeah.
always like, oh my, I haven't read this in like a year or years and or whatever it's been. and now I see it through fresh eyes, and it kind of something clicks.
Hmm.
But um, I've found that spirituality is not complicated, and if you're trying to make it complicated, you're going farther away from the source. Um,
Yeah.
it's actually quite simple. And that's why people, when you read like high truths, people like get bored of it because they're like, they just say the same thing over and over and over. And it's like, because it really is the same thing over and over and over. Like it's not as complicated as you want to make it to be. There's
Yeah.
spirituality and there's occultism, and there's a difference. Occultism is dealing with the structure of the mechanics of how things work and make it more complicated. And eventually it gets farther away from truth, actually, and it just starts becoming something to be utilized for, and never by something good within your side yourself that wants to utilize it, like seeking power or material gain or I'm going to use this occult structure to control the future or get power over something for myself or over others if it gets even worse, or use it for material gain. And it's like the thing is, that which is occulted, so to speak, as you are letting go and become more yin, it kind of unveils itself to you anyway. When you look into it through like books and teachers, you're coming out of an energy that wants to utilize it for the ego, which is what got you in trouble in the first place. So, um, and the it's kind of like the stories of the genie. Like the genie, you ask the genie for a wish, and you'd say, I don't know, you wanted something, but it can't. There was a lot of things you didn't see that would have came with that, like a lot of cons. Like you got
Hmm.
money, but now you got more problems that came with the money, and like on and on and on. Um, or you think it's going to make you happy, and then when you get it, it doesn't make you happy, and then you're confused, and then you just keep going deeper and deeper and deeper. Well, I'm going to do this to try to get this to make me happy. I'm going to get this to make me happy. I'm going to get this, and then you get pulled farther and farther away from what would truly have made you happy, because you don't see what makes you happy unless you start letting go of and subtracting to see your dharma, so to speak, or
Yeah.
I don't know. I just feel I know people are just going to do what they do anyway, and I've kind of at this point kind of accepted it. And I think if you're wherever you're at right now, you're going to express that anyway, regardless of what I'm saying. So, but I can just say, the grass is always greener, and you think when you get something, it's going to make you happy, and it probably will not, because the thing that is making you unhappy is the same thing that is seeking the thing that is trying to make you happy. So you're manifesting something out of the same thing that made you unhappy in the first place, thinking it's going to make you happy. So it's like, I could just warn, dabbled with the occult for years successfully, and it never made me happy. Like, if anything, it got pulled me farther away from my true self. And It's the same thing. Law of the attraction, the universe just you know manifest what you are, so to speak. Anyway, and if
Hmm.
you're trying to use the law of manifestation to your ego's advantage, you might get what you probably will get eventually what you wanted, but is it going to make you happy? No, because it's the same thing that makes you unhappy inside of yourself right now that wanted to manifest that in the first place. So it's going to make you happy for 2 seconds, and you're going to go back to where you were. And I can
Yeah.
say that with absolute certainty. And I could just warn people who are like into utilizing the occult. Um, but
Yeah. I don't know. It's kind of funny. Somebody posted something. I'm trying to think what it said. Something about um, if everything's already determined, then what's the point of kind of wishing for anything? And what was it? I can't think exactly how it was phrased, but it was like a conversation with God or something, and he's like smiling and said, "Well, maybe on a certain page I said, as you wish." But I'm like, when I read that, I just died laughing because I'm like, yeah, he said that with a smirk. Because as you wish, if we get things as we wish them instead of as God plans them for us, they're usually pretty terrible in my
Mm.
experience. They're those moments where you go, yeah, I didn't want that thing. Yeah, it's more of that. So I definitely don't disagree with what you're saying on that particular thing. But
Well, that's I actually read the book of Matthew somewhat recently again, talking about coming back to things with fresh eyes. And I think was it Matthew 4 through 7, basically like the Sermon on the Mount and where the Lord's Prayer is, that section. He seems to be using blessed um in the context of whatever you want, God is going to bless you with it.
mm-hmm.
It doesn't mean good or bad. Because if you look
Yeah.
at going down the list where he's talking about blessed are they, blessed are they, blessed are they, people always try to put blessed in the context of good, but I don't see he was talking about being good or bad. He was just saying, if you do if this happens, you'll be blessed with this. If this happens, you'll be blessed with this. And there was kind of good, quote unquote, good and bad context within the things he was saying, but he seemed to just be using blessed as just, okay, you want God will just give it to you. Like, like if they already got the reward, like that's if they do
Mm-hmm.
this, this is their reward. If they do this, this is their reward. But if you do this, this will be your reward. And he's
Yeah.
just using blessed as God will just grant you based on your action,
Yeah.
so to speak. But like blessed doesn't mean good or bad. Blessed just means it will be done. Like,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. It kind of makes me think about some people I ran into last year. It happened several times, and you'll say, how are you or whatever, and they'll say blessed and highly favored, and I'm like, hmm, that's interesting. So it's not. I don't know. I always thought that was an interesting response because I'm like, well, that's having some extreme faith right there.
Mm.
But also, it's like, I don't know. I think that's more of that. Maybe it's whatever mindset you're in. Because, like what I was saying a minute ago about, I feel like that's God saying something with a smirk. Like, you're gonna get that thing.
Yeah.
But maybe, maybe that's because of that mindset I had at that time was a little more negative tilt. And maybe these people are more of a positive tilt. So they feel they can say that and
Yeah.
mean it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people, like I said, especially in religion, or whenever you hear they say blessed, they always think it means something good. But I think I have good
Mm-hmm.
evidence for the way I've recently seen like the Book of Matthew and the context of blessed. It just means, it will be done. And if you accept that everything happens by the will of God, which you absolutely do, especially at this point,
Yeah.
and that everything is happening on its own, so to speak. And you just have to look at the world around you and say, okay, um, this person with greed was blessed with lots of money and he screwed over lots of people and he got lots of money. Or this
Mm-hmm.
person wanted extreme amounts of power and he was blessed and got that power. I mean, look at the world around you. You will be blessed, so to
Mm-hmm.
speak, as in you will be given what you want. And that goes back to the whole law of attraction, quote unquote, which can be utilized, you know. Yeah, I'll be the broken record of letting go. Like you can use that same universal principle. I hesitate to call it a law, but a principle, like um, to get closer to yourself, if that is
Mhm.
your intention. Like your intention is blessed, like like for good or bad. Like basically the will of God is happening, and if you put your attention into something, you become um, that iron filing in the magnetic field. You put a certain charge to your iron filing, and it's going to wind up in a certain place in the magnetic field. And when everything, the stars align up, quote unquote, you'll get what you wanted, quote unquote, law of attraction. It's the same people that took power over nations that um, became dictators over nations. They were blessed. They were given. They
Mhm.
became the ruler for even though horrible things happened by the blessing of God, so to speak, by the will of God, because they put themselves they gave themselves a charge, and they wound up in the iron filing, and it was the will of God that they ended up where they ended up because that's what they wanted and that's where they put their intent. Um, and the same applies to all of us. Um, um, Wherever we put our intent, we'll give a charge to our iron filing, so to speak, and we'll wind up in the part of the field that will bless us eventually when the stars align and everything plays out
Mhm.
and we find ourselves exactly where we wanted to be. And
Yeah.
that is where your free will is to put, what I've discovered is you don't have control over your thoughts or your actions or any of that, which all seems to be just happening by itself. You do have a your free will to um, become what you want. And
Mhm.
by becoming what you want, you wind up in the field and your thoughts and actions just change based on what you become.
Mhm.
And that is all your free will. I don't have a free will to go like this right now. Like I just, or the words that are coming out of my mouth or anything of the such. I just have control over what I am based on my intent and the totality of what I am right now.
Yeah.
And anything would come out of Spoons' mouth would just trigger based on what I am right now a response
Mhm.
or lack of words or whatever. Like that takes a radical honesty to really look and see that's what's going on because you do have free will, but everything still happens by the will of God, and you just have the free will to put that charge on that iron filing to wind up and wherever in the magnetic field.
Yeah. Yeah. I think intentions definitely matter. That's for sure. I was, I spent a lot of last year really being very specific day to day on my intentions, the energy that I was kind of putting out to the people around me and such. And then what I kind of found with that experiment was it would bring certain types of people to me that I didn't necessarily expect. And I sort of fell off of that practice a bit because it kind of got to that point where I'm like, do I even know what I'm messing with at this point with some of these intentions that I'm setting? So I just sort of stopped for a bit. I mean, I still set like certain intentions, but I don't do it like very specifically as I was doing previously. It's interesting to go out there and play with that stuff
Mm.
sometimes. Um, yeah, there's certain things the last few years I kind of I guess play with or whatever, and I think I don't really understand enough about some of the stuff that I'm messing with to continue with it. So just those things kind of drop off. Mm. Hmm. Well,
Yeah, I think it's a good
I
place
knew
to
we
end.
wanted to do like actionable things, and then we just got totally into the letting go stuff, which is great, I think, actually. So it was a good conversation.
Yeah, we can continue as a part two next week, maybe.
Yeah.
But yeah, talk about some other things. But yeah, it's a good place to wrap it up. I don't know, like somewhere halfway in there, my throat got really scratchy. It's just I just keep
Hmm.
coughing. Like, so
Yeah,
it's a
no worries.
great part. I talked my voice out today, I guess.
That's good. That's good.
Mm.
Maybe some of the viewers, if you guys have like some books or actionable things that made a big difference in your life, maybe you want to share them in the comments or whatever. I love to get some feedback.
Yeah, indeed.
Uh,
Help us out, guys. What do you want to hear about?
so yeah.
So, um, okay, so thank you for joining us for another episode of Where the Mind Wanders. Catch us at 3:30 Eastern Standard Time on YouTube every Monday. You can also check out our Telegram channel of the same name, Where the Mind Wanders. We'll drop the video on there the next day after the premiere. And okay, guys, until next time, um, take care and let us know in the comments what you think. All right.